Welcome to Thriving Thoughts, a podcast for women who believe in thriving in any and every circumstance. Every week, we have candid conversations with remarkable women about how they silence the little lies in their minds and overcome their shoulds, coulds, and not enoughs with big truths. I'm your host, Dr. Sherry. Now let's thrive. Hey friends, welcome to episode 5 of Thriving Thoughts, Overcoming Abundance with my dear friend, Beth Waller. You guys, Beth is such an amazing, remarkable woman. I see her as a philanthropist, and she wouldn't call herself that, but she is really a life changer and a movement maker. And she is taking her message globally, her message of giving back, her message of walking in your purpose and being open to the paths set before you that you might not even think about. You know, she shares with us about what it means and what it looks like to overcome abundance, which sounds kind of crazy, right? Like, don't we typically overcome negative things like tragedy or defeat or bad things that happen in our lives? Well, Beth is here to share with us a fresh take on how to overcome when it feels like everything in life is perfect, on paper at least. Beth shares with us her journey about how she started long ago as a flight attendant, moved into real estate, and has accessed her heart and her gifts for giving back to the community and has taken that movement worldwide. So tune in, my friends. Listen closely to the words of my wonderful, remarkable friend, Beth Waller. Hey, good morning, Beth. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Thriving Thoughts. I am so honored to have you here. I can't wait just to share you with the people who are listening.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Nice to see you. Everyone else can't see you from the vantage point I can. So
This is very true. I love the video feature of recording these podcasts because it really helps us to have that natural conversation. And that's what the listeners need to hear. I've always said, and I probably say this too much, but I repeat it because not everybody listens to every podcast episode, that what we're doing here is just a candid conversation between friends who have a message to share with other women, and we're going to air that conversation, right? So
there are lots of conversations we had that we couldn't have aired.
That's probably true.
Sherry was my therapist for a number of years, and one of the people I credit for getting me on the right path. So it's really ironic here. I see you, and I just want to start blabbing and talking.
And I love that. Let's blab away. Tell us about you, Beth. Who are you, and what are you up to these days?
Well, I tell myself I'm this shy small town girl when I do my travels all over the world.
Which is so funny because I see you as so grand, like larger than life. Like, I love that humility aspect of you. You say you're the shy small town girl, but man, you are making a global impact right now. So, but go ahead.
Well, thank you. Well, I do get intimidated when I leave my little pond here, my little comfort of home, born and raised here in Front Royal, Warren County. I know everybody and I feel confident in my career. I'm a real estate agent, as you know. I have my own real estate company that have downsized considerably to just me as I focus on my nonprofit now called What Matters. But I go out there and I'm like, gosh, I'm not supposed to be out here in this world. I'm like comfortable back in my hometown. So there are all these, lies that we tell ourselves that we're not worthy of doing the work that we're even doing. I feel so blessed every day to be able to be doing what I'm doing now. So I was born and raised here, went away to college. I graduated from College of Charleston in South Carolina, one of my very favorite places in all the world.
Beautiful.
Came back here as a flight attendant initially, was based out of Chicago at first, but then was transferred to DC. So I was able to come home, got married, and was laid off after those terrible, terrible September 11th tragedies. I was a flight attendant before the September 11th terrible
turn in the industry. So you weren't flying then?
I was flying then. So yes, I was flying then, but I was laid off after the tragedy. So when I was flying, it was this glamorous, amazing industry. They'd pick us up in a limo and we'd stay at the Bonaventure in LA, like all these fancy hotels. And It was just beautiful. But in hindsight, you can see so many things that were done that just weren't safe. We would go in the cockpit, it was just my mom would fly with me sometimes, and we would go in, and we could go in through the tarmac. Literally, you didn't have to show any ID. We walked in through the airport because she was with me. I had my little code. So it's like things that you look back on and you wonder, how did that happen? But I was laid off because I was still young on the totem pole. And so I took my online real estate class as something to do to kind of hold off people who said, are you going to get a real job now that you're laid off? And I didn't want to. I wanted to go back flying.
Yeah, and I got to speak to that for a second because I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And we don't have to dive too deep here, but just as an aside for you to maybe come back to. But I think that man, like you and I have talked about this before about caring, what people think.
Exactly.
And
I was in a different place there where that mattered to me.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't matter to any of us.
Well, yes and no. It does matter what other people think because our life impacts other people's lives, right? But at the same time, it's when we use that, what other people think, to drive our decisions, to drive what we do. And so my curiosity for you really quickly is, why real estate? When you felt this kind of pull or maybe pressure from other people to get a real job or get a career, it could have been anything. So why real estate?
Well, that really ties into why anything has happened in my life. I like to say that everything happens in my life, and I think in everyone's life, accidentally on purpose. So I think there's so many accidentally on purpose things that happen even in a given day. Real estate is because God knew that would be a career that I could be financially blessed with, to share that blessing with others.
Yeah.
No clue why real estate, other than some inspiration came in my head to do it. And things in your life lead to that. So we were renting a place from my in-laws at the time, and they offered to sell it to us. And I thought, well, maybe I should take a real estate class to kind of learn how, what value is and learn how that whole system works of buying a home. And I was actually the first person ever to graduate with my real estate license online in the Blue Ridge Association of Realtors, because this was back in 2003, I guess it was.
I did not know that about you.
Yeah, they told me, wow, you're the first person ever to have an online. It was back when, I was like dial up from Browntown. It was, I was like it was pretty slow going. But I think that's what happens, why you make some of the best decisions in life is that they're decisions that are given to you by God, by the universe, by an inspiration, by higher thoughts than you have of your own. And you follow them, and it takes you in the right path. Sometimes we don't follow them, and it's okay. We can kind of scoot all around, but it sure is easier when we listen to that voice inside. And it sounded crazy, like online real estate class. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but the best decisions I've ever made in my life are ones that have made absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Well, I love that accidentally on purpose theme, because I think that too often what we do, just as a society in general, we talk about the perfect path, right? Like we're supposed to carve out a path from a very young age, and we're supposed to stay the course, right? We're supposed to stay on that path and not veer off of it, because if we veer off of it, we're seen as reckless, or we're seen as flighty, not responsible. Especially as women, we can be labeled with those pejorative terms, flighty, whimsical, spirited, whatever it is, right? As opposed to really embracing those accidents that do happen on purpose, because I think so many people miss opportunities because they're believing in this lie of this straight path that they have to be on.
And then they're judging themselves for the accidents. Like if they are a real accident, like they're judging themselves, or they're blaming themselves, or they're thinking of the negatives of whatever situation they're in. But I believe every situation, even the bad ones, are there to get us back on path. To give us an opportunity to get back on our course, which necessarily isn't the same course as what everyone else thinks we should be on. Yeah. I've had to face that a lot with my own, with the divorce and that sort, and deciding that, okay, this wonderful American dream life that I had built for myself wasn't the path for me.
Yeah. Well, you talk about, you're actually writing a book right now, and your title of your book is Overcoming Abundance, right?
Yes, I have this thing for buying domain names, and sometimes they're expensive. That one I think was 99 cents. Like, who's going to buy overcomingabundance.com?
Right, like who would even think that's something to overcome, right? Exactly. Like everybody's like, what are you talking about? I want abundance. Like,
I know, right?
Right. Well, it's such an interesting concept. So can you share with us what that means to you, and why that's an important message for you in your life and to share with others?
Certainly. There are a couple different levels of that, but I believe that the people that are happiest in this world and really feeling like rewarded when they get up and excited about their day and thankful and happy and on purpose are people that are kind of two-tracked people. They're people who are like the partner I'm working with from Uganda, who grew up in poverty, right? They're people that overcame tragedy, horrible hardship, whether they have this story, right? This terrible event or childhood or something they had to overcome, and they have made their life epic because they really want to they know how bad it was, right? And they want to give back to the world because they've been through such hardship. This guy that I'm working with and I'm supporting in Uganda, he was an orphan at 13. His mom died at 9. His dad at 13. He had to raise his family, overcame poverty, and now he uses his life to help other kids like him.
Yeah.
Then there are people who I believe have had to overcome their abundance, and that would be the category that I fall in. I've had the most blessed life. I never had to worry about anything as a child. Perfect childhood. My parents are still married. They came to all of my sporting events. We had family dinners every night. We went to church. We went on family vacations. We never had to really worry. I'm sure they fought and we had financial concerns, but I was shielded from all of that.
Sure.
Went to college, had all these blessings, started my career, took off, everything. I literally had on paper this picture perfect American dream life down to the last when I was trying to hold on to this dream and make it just like the perfect dream. Even got a dog and put a fence up. I'm like, okay, and put new siding on my house. Everything was perfect.
It's like the white picket fence. It's picture perfect dream.
But it just literally, I was like, okay, maybe if I redo my home, then this life that I've created will feel better. Of course, that didn't work, as you know, as my former therapist.
Yes.
But so I believe that there are people like me, like I was, that are living in this life that is abundant, that is happy. It has so many blessings, I had a great family, great friends, great support system, great career, everything. So I had to overcome all of that to step into this life that now I'm living that is so much even beyond what I had before. And I'm truly happy in my heart and on purpose. And when I say on purpose, I don't even know what that means because I just know that I'm on the right path and God is leading me somewhere and my higher self is leading me somewhere that I want to go. And before it got to the point where I was on path and then I got to the point where I realized, okay, there's something else I have to do. And that's when I had to make the change. And I think that the reason why people are meeting with therapists like you were, are on antidepressants, are committing suicide, are drug addicts, it's because they can't figure out why they're unhappy. They have abundance, right? They don't have to worry, a lot of people, about what to eat or whatever. They have a decent life. They shouldn't be so miserable, but it's because they have to overcome that status quo. They're mediocrity and step into the life that is waiting for them just beyond that. And I think people are miserable going through day by day, living for the weekend, living for that 2-week vacation because they can't step out and overcome their abundance to step into even more abundance.
So, I have a question about that because I would question then the definition of abundance because something that you said struck me. You said on paper, right? And on paper, we say like what looks good, what looks like abundance. But obviously to you during some period of time, and I'd like you to dive into that a little bit for us. Like how long was that period of time where you just knew that despite all of this quote unquote abundance, there was something greater, there was something missing, there was a void, there was unhappiness that was leading you to get more and more and more abundance or, redecorate your home or do whatever it was to keep making this perfect life even more perfect. So if you can talk about what that period of time was like for you, particularly emotionally and maybe even in your relationships.
Okay. And I think that's something that I've not really reflected on before, which I'm thrilled that you're bringing up, your therapist and you here. Perfect for a podcaster.
Right.
So I feel like I was on path for a portion of my life, right? And it was because everything that I've done and all the decisions made, I have beautiful children, I have great memories made with my marriage, my career as I built that up and my volunteer career here in Front Royal, I was on path, I was building up to get ready for this next step. I always knew in the back of my mind, just make it to 40, make it to 40, make it to 40, things will be better, make it to 40, things will be better. Because I was running ragged, working all the time, but I was still doing it and felt motivated. But it was about probably the time we met, but it was about the 2012-ish, I think. It was whenever that year was where I got all these awards. I got like Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year award, like the service candle for my church, which is the highest honor you can get in my church, different awards. And I just remember thinking that they were empty, and that's not why I was doing this. And I feel like it was almost like, okay, I graduated, I got all these awards. It's like there's like a diploma. It's like, okay, now what's next? What's the next step? You got these awards that you're not supposed to get till you're like 60. You're 35 or whatever I was at the time, 36. And like, now what? Like, I felt like that was like God saying, okay, now it's time to look and move on. And I knew that in my heart that there was something else I was supposed to do, but I didn't know what it was. And I also knew that I had to make changes in my life to be able to do that. And that's the thing that I just didn't want to face, which was, of course, getting a divorce. And that was something that I knew needed to happen before I stepped into my next path. I mean, I knew that the right decision probably wasn't getting married at the time that I did, but that was my own will. I loved my husband, and I wanted to create this American dream life, and I knew that I could with him. We were great friends, but I knew that was a choice that I made that I don't believe was maybe God's will, but was my own will. I start every day now saying, may thy will be my will.
Yeah.
Because
I love that.
That's so important. But that whole situation is proof that it doesn't really matter if you use your will, because at the end of the day, it will all come around and you'll have so many blessings in the meantime. I wouldn't change that decision for the world.
That
have beautiful children, and yes, maybe if I had decided, because I had another waking up period when I was just graduated from high school in '99, where I think that it was an opportunity God was giving me to start this earlier, but I didn't take it. I came home and made this wonderful life for myself here at home. But I think that all had to happen too, and that all happened accidentally on purpose, as we talked about, and it all works out.
Well, I think this is also an opportunity for you to maybe clarify and encourage some of the women listening, because, well, one, when we start to feel unsettled or dis-ease, as I put it, right, that can lead to lots of diseases itself, right? But when we start to feel unsettled and we start to feel something pulling us to something different, that period of time can feel like it's a lifetime.
It can.
And there's nothing that we want more than to alleviate that. We just want to be free of that.
Right.
And so can you talk a little bit about maybe how long that period lasted for you before you really had this movement in your breakthrough, and how you coped with that in the meantime? Sure.
So I started this grumbling of, gosh, things you need to make some changes in your life. But I really believe that, and even when I wish I knew now what I knew then, and I hope somebody's listening who feels like I do. I actually do, because I would have been forgiving on myself for taking the 3 years it took me, 3.5, 4 years almost, to really make these changes.
Right.
I would cry myself to sleep at night, laying there beside my husband, who wasn't beating me, wasn't a terrible person, but there wasn't this connection. There was this, it just wasn't right.
Right.
And I would my kids, I'm trying to raise my kids and have this career as a volunteer and as a realtor, and I'm just miserable, and I'm thinking, is this the rest of my life? Whatever. But what I think about, what I wish I knew at that moment, I wish I could go back to that girl and say, you know what? You can't force things. Everything happens in its right time. Every single thing. If I had made a decision to get a divorce before I did, if I had made a decision to just start these What Matters initiatives before I did, nothing that has been so wonderful and blessed that has come into my life would have happened, because it would have been the wrong time.
Right.
So I believe you just shouldn't be hard on yourself, and should just give yourself forgiveness and work, number one, on loving yourself and allowing yourself to be happy. And that is the number one thing that I would say to anyone, is that you have to be selfish. You have to figure out what makes you happy and make time for that. I remember sitting on your couch and you gave me an assignment. You said, you need to go do something during the day for you that you want to do. And at that time, I loved to jog. I loved to run. I think it's because that was before I was meditating. That was before I did anything for myself. Other than, everything that I do is for myself, as far as volunteering and being with my kids and family and my work. I love all of that. But as far as selfish, it's selfish to take an hour during the middle of the day and go for a run or a hike, because I could be working and then spend time with my kids later. I'm taking that time from them. It's selfish for me to do that. Or also, I had this false belief that everyone has to think you're working so hard. And nobody can see me running down the street on South Royal Avenue.
Look at Lazy
one,
Beth running
one
down
in the
the street.
afternoon. They're going to think, oh, she must not be working as a realtor anymore. She's running at 1 o'clock.
Right.
Now they see me in Africa every other month. So I wouldn't do it. I was like, I don't want people to see me like having fun or doing something selfish or whatever. I'm a worker, I'm doing things, I'm giving it all to whatever. And so the number one of the I think all these things happened to me. But I was in a meditation at one point, and this was 2015, and I went back to my little girl self in my little bedroom on my bed, and I had a conversation with her, and I said, you don't just have to work hard and do what everybody wants and make a difference. Yes, that's good to do these things, but you need to be happy too. And I give you permission to be happy. Be happy. You deserve to be happy. Everyone deserves to be happy. Be happy. Something happened to me in that meditation that my complete DNA shifted, and I'm not the person that I used to be. This was at a conference called A-Fest in Costa Rica in October 2015. I came home from that conference and happened to be going there literally a week after, 9 days after I told my husband, I really did want a divorce after we had gone through therapy and had decided. So all the timing of all of that, right? I tell my husband, okay, then 9 days later, I go on my very first retreat convention ever, have this experience, come back, and I'm a changed person, and I'm on path. I'm like, it's like God was like, okay, she's going to do this. And I think that there are these moments that we have when we're trying to find our path and when we're overcoming things, or when we're in that emotional roller coaster, status quo, hamster wheel where we're trying to figure it out, which so many of us are in all the time for so long. And I'm still getting it, I'm still like, I haven't figured it all out. That's for sure. That's the problem I had. I thought one day I'm going to figure it all out. Well, I've realized now that's never going to happen. Right. But we're in this period, and there's going to come a decision to make or a choice to make that's like this pivotal moment that you can make either one and your life's going to be fine. But if you make that harder one, everything is going to unfold. And that's what I did. I made that hard decision to go on that conference that I had booked months and months in advance, whereas everybody, my best friends, my parents, my family, you can't leave right now. You just decided you're getting a divorce. You're going to go leave your kids for 9 days. You can't do that. I've never left them for more than 2 days. Right. And it wasn't my plan to tell them beforehand, but that's how it all unfolded. And I believe it was because it's almost like God, the universe said, okay, let's make sure she's really in it. Let's give her this huge test. And I think sometimes that happens, something that you have to make a choice to be selfish and do what you know you need to do for you. And I did that. Everybody was kicking and screaming. It was the first time in my life, really, that I made a decision like that against everybody's will. But it was the best thing I ever did.
I love what you're talking about. Again, so it depends on your definition of selfish. Like, people think selfish is a bad thing, right?
Exactly. It's not bad.
It's not a bad thing to be selfish, because I'll take you back to your flight attendant days, Beth, where what did you tell people about their oxygen masks if they fell?
Right, exactly. Yes.
I know it's cliche, but what did you tell them?
You have to put your own oxygen mask on before, and I wish I could remember the whole speech. I had it in my mind still for like a decade after that. It's gone now. Although every time I land, I do say the flight commands in my head. It just automatically comes because they train you so well for an evacuation. It's crazy, but it's true. You have to protect yourself first, so you can't help anybody else.
Right. So it's not really being selfish in the sense that we use the word selfish, like that person's so selfish, they only think about themselves. Right. It's about the necessity of thinking of and taking care of yourself first, so that then you can go and fulfill the purpose that's set before you.
Exactly.
And so that's a perfect segue, Beth.
And it's so hard because being selfish is putting yourself before your kids. My kids, I'm sure, would have loved if I had stayed in the life that I had. And I talk to them about this every day. I'm very frank with them about these things. Guys, I'm sorry, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to miss a couple days of our week. I have joint custody every other week, and I see them during the off weeks at events and that sort of sports. But I'm like, I'm going to miss 3 days of our week this week. I'm sorry. I love you so much. I hope you know, but that's one reason I'm doing this, because I want you to know that it's not about other people in your life. It's about you and fulfilling the call that you have. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to fulfill God's call, and I miss you and I love you, but I have to do this for me and for my purpose in this life.
Yeah. And something that you said, it escapes me now, but basically talking about going and fulfilling your call. There was that period of time when you didn't know what that was exactly, right? And there's a lot of women that I know, including myself, have gone through periods of time where we don't know what that call is. And so I think this is a beautiful, maybe segue into how you've always been a volunteer. You've always wanted to give back, but maybe you never fully equipped yourself to be able to do that effectively because you weren't taking care of yourself. You weren't protecting yourself first, right? And so you started doing that. And then maybe that's when that bigger, greater call was revealed. Can you tell us about, and basically what I'm referring to about this, now you've got this amazing, nonprofit organization called What Matters, and you are doing just phenomenal work over in Africa. And that wasn't always the case. I mean, you've always been volunteering. You've always been giving back, especially in the local community. You still do. But your calling was to do something more global than that, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
So when was that revealed to you, and what did that feel like when it was?
Right. And here's the thing, and the message I'd like to give to people, it never was revealed to me. All of this is happening, as we said, accidentally on purpose. I never had a plan. Oh, I want to go to Africa and do something. I never, ever, ever knew. And I still have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring and what the next day. But guess what? I could not care less, because I know I'm on the right path, and I know I'm open to guidance. I know that I'm open to hear the signs and look around and feel where God is calling me to go, what I'm supposed to do next. They know I'm listening. I call them, like God, Jesus, the universe, my saints, my angels, my departed loved ones. I call them. And every day I talk to them all day long, and I try to stay connected, because I believe that there are the things that matter. What matters is your heart, is my tagline. But I think what matters is everything that we don't see. Everything that we don't see, and the resources that we have, each of us have, if we allow them to help us in our life. And I believe that there's so much positive energy and so much guidance that you ask, when was it revealed? It's like they only give you enough to get you through. And I feel like half this time, like as I've been like I call it evoluting. I'm evoluting instead of evolution or whatever. It's evoluting, like another layer's peeled off, another false belief is overcome that I have had in my life. But if I had known that, if it all happened at once, okay, here's what we're gonna do, blah blah blah, it wouldn't have worked. So it's like they're just letting pieces. So I'll have all these grand ideas. I think that it's going to change the world, all these ideas, and I'll be like, and I used to get disappointed when they didn't unfold right away.
Right.
Because, hey, wait, I thought that you gave me this idea. I feel like this should be happening right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the right time for it. Or maybe it's like a carrot. Okay, we need her to think that this is what she's going to do. So she'll go and do this. And then we're going to unfold. Like, it's like pull another curtain back. Okay, now this is the next step. And I've gotten so I don't care anymore. I have all these ideas and plans and things I want to do. But I think that we all have to do, number one, is differentiate between our will and our ego and our idea of what we want to do, and what our divine purpose is, and what thy will is for us. And I think
being open to that
and receiving the ideas and making time to listen. So my days before were so packed, I'll come back to that assignment, take an hour of your day and go hike. And then you said okay, I wasn't doing that. I would report back, I'm sorry, I didn't do it. You'd say, okay, we'll take 5 minutes and write in a journal, but you can't make a to-do list. You have to just write thoughts. You cannot write about what you need to do or whatever. Yeah. You have to write. And I remember, I think I did it once. I remember I was sitting down in my grandmother's, by her pool at the time, and I was writing. I was like, okay, I don't know what to write, blah, 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 blah. Like I didn't make time to listen. So I think the number one thing people need to do is carve out time in their life to listen to the guidance that is waiting for us. If we are open to it, if we will listen, if we will start, and you'll see signs, and it sounds so silly. My kids are always joking about, Mom, it's a sign. Mom, it's a sign. Mom, it's a sign. We would see but that's how it works. And if you follow it, thoughts become things, if you want something bad enough, you're going to get it. I've wanted a Tesla since 2016. I was in a cab in Europe in a Tesla, and I was like, I want a Tesla. Impossible at the time, but I knew for a fact I was going to have a Tesla one day. They were like $100,000. There's no way I was going to get a Tesla. I would try to come up with the kids. I'd be like, because every time we see a Tesla, Mom, it's a sign, there's a Tesla. And I'd try to come up with these plans of, okay, maybe I can figure out how Tesla will donate me a car because a nonprofit, and we can do it as a PR stint, and we can have an application. Mom's like, everybody's not like you. I mean, Sarah, my daughter's like, Mom, everybody doesn't think like you. Nobody will do that. I'm like, maybe if I say I'll pledge twice as much as the car payment to a nonprofit, they'll give me one. Long story. I'm not going to go into the story, but I have in my driveway a Tesla. Base price is now $39,000, and I have a Tesla. So I mean, anything is possible. I don't know where I was going with that. There was a message in that, but
well, for me, Beth, what I hear is that I love it that you do not live your mind, your thriving thought world is one of infinite possibility.
Infinite, absolute infinite.
And you do not say, there is no way I can get this. I mean, I think that's what we lie to ourselves about is I could never have that. That could never be me. That is not meant for me. I've even heard women say, great success is not meant for me.
Right.
And when we believe those things, we stop being open. We stop looking for signs. We stop looking for opportunities, right?
Yes.
And so when we stop looking for that, how could we ever possibly take advantage of them?
Right, exactly. And that's, you just have to be open and you have to know. I 100% know without a shadow of a doubt that some things that are going to happen, and I have no idea how. Like I knew I was going to have a Tesla, which was totally impossible. Like I knew I would never spend, have this huge car payment and have a Tesla. I mean, that was crazy, but I knew I was going to. So there's so many things I think in this life. What are some things that you ladies listening right now just really feel called to, or really know, or really feel like it's going to happen, but it's crazy, and then you just push it aside, or you go with that and explore that and make the time and be open to looking around. Before I started my work in Africa, I had no idea anything about Africa, but I would see everything was like Africa. Like as soon as I met this guy on Facebook from Africa, like everywhere was Africa. Everywhere was Africa. Everywhere was like random references. Like I'd get a picture frame and then the fake picture in there was like made in Africa, whatever, everything. And just pay attention to that stuff. And songs too are really, like, my nonprofit's named after a song. I think that songs, you turn on the radio right now, when you finish this podcast, turn on the radio and keep pressing around till you hear something that resonates with you and listen to those words, because it'll be a message to you.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about from at least a very base psychological perspective is priming your brain. So when you have an idea that comes into your mind, wherever it comes from, if you push that idea away and you say, this is an impossibility, this is not going to happen, your brain then is not going to be primed to notice things that would confirm that, right? Your brain will notice things that disconfirm that, right? So kind of like when you get a Tesla. Now, I bet you see more Teslas on the road now that you have one, because your brain is like primed to
Actually,
it, right?
I don't see them at all, which is so crazy, because I have one now. Before I was looking for them because I wanted that sign to see a Tesla. Everywhere. Yeah. And it's all mind games we play with ourselves.
Yeah, it is.
That's what it's about, Yeah. We're all just making this up. I always say this. I'm like, okay, Truman Show. Like, I feel like this is just, that movie. We are all just living our own Truman Show. We are all living our own Truman Show. And sometimes I tell them, I'm like, okay, that was a little obvious. I'm going to catch the fact that there's no, that's fake.
Right. Well,
I'm catching you. That's too weird. Come on.
There's so much truth in that, in how our realities are formed right up here in our minds, right in our thought worlds.
We can create whatever we want. We are co-creating with each other, with God, with our helpers. So might as well make it as what we want it to be, right?
Yeah.
And it can't happen overnight, but wait, one step in the right direction. And that's the thing I used to do too. Okay, I've come from your office. Okay, I'm going to do this, and this, and this, and this week. And then I would hate myself because I didn't do it.
Right.
So pick one thing, or make a whole list of everything, but don't kill yourself or hate yourself if you don't do it. Just pick one thing and celebrate the wins.
Yeah.
There's this thing called the reverse gap that I heard about at this event called A-Fest. You think, I haven't done what I want to do. Oh, gosh, I haven't met all these goals or done all these things or made these decisions. Look back 3 years ago and celebrate that you're not there and all the decisions that you've made to bring you right here. And look in the rearview mirror, the hindsight. Yep. And that will give you affirmations that, hey, you can't do it all. It's not overnight. So forgive yourself beautiful. And allow yourself just to be and to be open.
Yeah. Hey, Beth, so you've talked a lot about Africa. You've mentioned Uganda. Tell us what you're doing there. What's going on? What's this about?
So a random experience, a friend of a friend became friends on Facebook with this guy who friend requested her. Turns out he was friend requesting people that he saw that looked interesting, that made posts, that weren't friends of his friends, because he didn't want to like overstep and friend his friends' friends and reach out to them. But it was this guy that was doing nonprofit work in Uganda, had an NGO, a non-government organization, which is what they call nonprofits there, called Light Up Life Foundations. And he was trying to help the children there. Like he grew up in poverty, and he was trying to give back to them, and had worked his way out of poverty from learning to sing and dance. He listened to a lot of Michael Jackson, taught himself to dance by watching his shadow on the neighbor's house from the lights of his neighbors. He didn't have electricity in his house, so rather than go in and when it's dark, he and his friends would dance to their shadows, and he became a fantastic dancer.
That is super
in Uganda,
cool.
even now, like people's dreams to get out of poverty, you know, you're a dancer, you're a singer, you're a boxer, you're a football player or soccer player. They could call soccer football, of course. So he worked his way out by singing and dancing. Was a gospel singer at first, and this guy heard him perform at a church and was a radio announcer, which is what they call DJs. And he played his song on the radio, which led to him actually having the #1 gospel hit in Uganda at a time.
Oh, my goodness.
He ended up getting sponsored to go to Norway to get his education, left his family, and there. He was basically raising his family since he was 13 when his father passed away, hustling on the streets, you know, trying to make money to earn $1 to feed his family, you know, going to school. It's just like the story is amazing, which I have written a mini biography about him, if anybody cares to learn more.
Where would we find that? Is it published?
It is. It's on my YouTube channel under What Matters World.
Okay.
It's also on, if you can access that through my website, whatmattersw2.com.
Okay.
W2 is for What Matters World and What Matters Warren, because that's our county, of course. So anyway, so this girl started to correspond with him and introduced him to me and said, you know, you should look this guy up. And he's doing some great work in his hometown like you are, and I think you would really connect. And it's funny, this lady that said that started out as a real estate client. And when I drove up to first go to her dad's house she was selling, when I saw her and got out of the car, I knew that she was a somebody. So sometimes you meet somebody or you have an experience with somebody and you know that they are important people in your life. It didn't make any sense at the time. Like I have calls every day of people wanting to sell their house. But I always can tell when they're going to be something.
Yeah.
And so it was weird, and I didn't know, of course, till after the fact that it was this, years and years later. So I wouldn't even, she's like, I started to give some money to this guy, and he's doing great work in Africa. I'm like, this guy's probably sitting in his parents' basement, you know, buying drugs with
doubting God,
you know, like, yeah, right. Who's doing work in Africa? Facebook. You saw him on Facebook. He friended you on Facebook. Whatever. You've heard those scams. These random people that try to friend you. Hey, what you doing? You know, like your profile picture. You know, I'm like, so it took me like 3 weeks or more. I think finally my friends had to like put their phone in front of me and play this video. I watched this video and I think I logged on and sent him $100, and I was like, if that guy buys drugs with my money, I don't even care, because that felt so good giving him money, because I saw he was doing this selfie with all these soccer shoes he had gathered from Norway, which is where he lives, because he lives in Europe but goes back to do his work there. And some of his friends and his sister run the organization while he's gone.
Okay.
Because he's now a performing artist. He's a motivational speaker in Norway. He won Norway's Youth Ambassador of the Year award in 2012 for his work with immigrants in Norway and inspiring them to overcome the odds. So the reason he needs help is because he was really, really doing so great after Michael Jackson's demise, unfortunately, prematurely. He was getting hired in so many gigs to do Michael Jackson dances and that sort. He's getting older. I think he's 33, 34 now. He has a wife and kids and people to support. And he kept adopting more and more kids, not officially adopting because he believes the children need to be in their home if possible and with their mothers, but he takes care of them and pays the fee for them to go to school and their education to live, and helps the moms and everything, and has a home for kids that aren't able to stay with their family. So anyway, so he has all these kids that he starts as a young age and realizes, oh my gosh, they're going to go to university, all of them. And I can't be like, oh, sorry, now you're in high school, you're on your own.
Right.
So he's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I have all these kids depending on me, and he's working 24/7, 7 jobs or so. So he's like, I'm going to open up a Facebook profile, start posting things, and see if anybody might give me money here and there. So that's kind of why because he actually was going through a similar like, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Right.
And he had the guidance to do that. So anyway, he replied to me right away. I was like, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. This is what I'm going to do with it, blah, blah. I was like, wow. And so we started corresponding. I'm like, is this guy legit? Like, if he's legit, I want to help him. Yeah. I really want to help him. And it's so funny because my platform for United Way campaign chair for 5 years, my platform for raising money for the Red Cross was that, hey, donate to this organization because I will make sure your money stays right here at home where we need it. Like that was my opening platform. You can give to all these organizations. That's great. I don't want to take that away, but we need help here at home.
Yeah.
Donate here. I used to personally fund the fees that United Way paid and Red Cross paid to have the go to the international organizations part, the fee, so that I could honestly tell people every dollar stays right here.
Right.
At home. And that was like my thing because I believed in that. Like when I first got my offering plate at church, I didn't want to give to the general fund because I knew that went away to some missionary stuff. I wanted to have the stained glass windows beautiful, and to support our own community. So I would, as a 10-year-old or whatever, I would do my $2, made sure it said, to the fund that's staying home, which is crazy. So now I'm like, give me your money and I will guarantee not a dollar will stay here. Now, of course, I still support the community here at home, but the money that I raise, every dollar that I raise from the community or from supporters goes now to Uganda. Okay. I'm not saying that's going to be forever. I have lots of different What Matters initiatives, but right now I'm funding all of them except for I'm opening it up to have help with the ones to Uganda because I just can't keep up,
So what are you doing over there? What's the work that people can support?
Right. So we just finished a school construction project. And the school so I ended up in Africa because I decided I want to go see if this guy's for real and legit. And I need to go see it with my eyes, see what he's doing, because I'm not going to ask anybody to give me $1 to give to this guy if it's not legit. It's one thing if I give my money and I trust him, that's one thing. So I go to Africa and I realized, man, this is the closest thing to Jesus work I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't even believe it. I was blown away beyond belief. And I was like, I want to help him. So I did a GoFundMe while I was there. I had started it before I left and didn't promote it because I was like, I don't want to promote it and then have egg on my face if I go there. And it's like, ugh. So I pledged to do a $5,000 match. So if I could raise $5,000, I would match it to get him $10,000 for his project.
You put your money where your mouth is, don't you? I love that.
And I still have a Tesla, and so that's going to be one of my parts of my book too. You can still have I have a boat that's named accidentally on purpose. Tesla. You can still have a Tesla. You can have everything because when you open your heart and do what you're called to do, I mean, I call myself a money channeler, but just because I do that doesn't mean I'm so spoiled. And I do have that emotional trouble when I do go to Uganda, and I'm like, I have all these nice things, I could sell everything and help these people even more, but you can't be poor enough to make the poorest person rich.
That's correct.
And I had to finally accept the fact that these are two different worlds, and I operate in this world, and I love them in that world, and I will help and support them in that world. Yeah. But I have to stop judging myself. And I had to talk about a whole nother podcast about overcoming that hatred of myself for having all these blessings that I have.
Yeah, we're going to have you back for that.
Knowing that these kids that I love don't even know how they're going to eat tomorrow. So anyway, so I go over to Uganda. I see that it's amazing. So, and again, I'm sure we don't have time for this story, but it's such a great story about how I ended up doing a Facebook Live, my first Facebook Live video while I was over there. And somebody messaged, oh my gosh, can I send some money? So then I decided to launch that GoFundMe. Okay. Ended up a client, very generous client, Matt, I was like, we're not going to make this $5,000. Ended up donating almost $2,000, around $2,000 to exceed the match. So we got $10,000 for this guy.
Oh my goodness.
Rather than use it to fund his existing work, which he was already struggling with, and to pay school fees for the existing kids, he decided he was going to use that as seed money to start a school construction project in the village where his dad grew up. Okay. His sister, who always stayed in Uganda, always wanted to go back to that village and do work there. She had spent more time there. She was older. Herbie, who's the guy that I work with, he couldn't really go to visit the village because he was always very sickly as a child, and it was a remote village with too much stuff. And So, but she always really wanted to do something. So we went on a mission trip there to do a scout. He does a scouting mission first, to scout out the area, to do kind of a needs assessment. What does the community want and need versus, hey, we're going to go do this. So that's why I love this grassroots, and why what he's doing works, because he starts at the community level. Right. And we saw there, after we met with them and we served them lunch and we took them toothbrushes and juice and candy and everything and did our mission. It was the Christmas Love Mission. They walked us up to the school that these elementary kids, it was the elementary school, the size of a shed, and kids were rotating, 40 kids or so were rotating in and out of the school that didn't have a roof. When it rained, they couldn't have school, didn't have a desk. It was the most horrid thing I've ever seen. I've seen worse since then, but he decided to build a school for them. And it was going to be this small school, and he was going to use the GoFundMe match to do that. Then I did another GoFundMe match to help finish the school project. But we do everything by divine guidance and faith and inspiration. And he and I operate the exact same way in that regard. And so what we do doesn't make sense. So I wasn't like, I just started funding the school the rest of the ways by selling houses, and he was by working. So we never really fully did the next match. But ended up building the school twice the size that it intended. Like literally it was started and he's like, no, I know that God is saying we need to build it bigger. Wow. You're hitting rock. It was so much more than we ever thought. But now it's a 2-room schoolhouse. We were there when I was there last month. We painted it and brought desks, and it needs to be expanded because there are over 200 kids that are coming from miles and miles and miles. There's 40 kids, and we are now talking about building another addition on the side because it's gotten such a great reputation. He's brought in teachers that are really good teachers. And is paying for the teachers. So it's making it affordable for these kids who would never be educated. Wow. So when my kids give me a hard time, I'm like, there are 200 plus kids in Africa that would not be learning English, that would not be getting education right now. Yeah. Sorry that I won't be here for your they don't play soccer, for your softball tournament next weekend, Right. But so it's just like, we do these things that don't make sense. Like, how are you going to fund it? How is it going to work? And we don't know. All I know is I'm 100% sure we're going to have the money that we need to do so much in this world. And I don't know how. I still don't know. I have all these grand ideas. They haven't unfolded yet. But guess what? I don't care anymore because I know that it will unfold in the right time. Yeah. And we were there the last time, and he pledged to build a school and dig a well at a new community that we discovered is in such great need. He's been supporting them with school supplies and school fees, but by sending one of the scouts out and just taking the money and the supplies. Yeah. We went there 2 trips ago ourselves to just kind of see, because it's a remote area. You have to go through this dusty area. It's hours and hours away, terrible drive. They share a watering hole with tadpoles and cows and a farm. It's just terrible. And there's nearest school is like 20 miles away. So they just have they read lessons under this jackfruit tree. Wow. So we're going to do a project there. Going to start a project there. We don't know how we're going to fund it. Sure. No idea. But we're going to listen. We're going to be open to the signs that are going to lead us in the right direction to find us the money to use.
Yeah. And that's my whole message takeaway is creating your reality by walking in the belief that the good things that you're called to do, the path will be made to make them come to fruition, and not for you, but for other people.
Exactly.
But in the process, you've got to first take care of yourself and be quote unquote selfish, right?
Exactly.
Hey,
I'm
Beth,
dancing with these little kids in Uganda, thinking there are people that pay good money to have drugs to make them feel half the way I feel so happy. Right. So just follow your path, do what it takes, like one step at a time, one day at a time, and just open yourself up.
Yeah. Thank you, Beth, so much for sharing your heart, and what matters to me is your heart and all of the hearts of the women listening. So thank you for sharing yours with us. And one thing I always want to do, be sure that we do before we sign off today, is give people an opportunity to connect with you, because other people need to know you. They need to know the work that you're doing. They just need to know you personally. So how can they reach out to you?
Well, one of the greatest joys I have is giving people hope people that were like me, that had everything, that are trying to figure out where they want to go in life. So I would love to talk to anybody. My email is Beth, Beth, at whatmattersw2.com. My website, www.whatmattersw2.com. I talk about my projects and my book and different things. It's a work in progress because this is still, of course, part-time. I have to sell real estate to fund everything. But I always have time to talk with people who just, I had so many people in my life that were leading me in the right direction and were inspirations to me. And I think that's one reason I overcame this, because I had people I was seeing that were doing it. Even at those days where it seemed impossible. So you're one of those people too that have just stepped outside of what everybody said you should do and overcome your beliefs. So I really respect that. I love the people that we are today. And I love the people that we were that got us here.
Yeah, you got that right, girl. I'm grateful for that too. Beth, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And sharing your heart today. I'm so blessed to know you and call you friend. And go and have an amazing day.
Thank you. And everybody remember, it's always working out, even when it isn't.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth. Bye.
Bye.
As always, I'm humbled you chose to join me this week for Thriving Thoughts. It's women like you who listen, subscribe, and give us thoughtful reviews that allow our message of thriving in any and every circumstance to reach even more women who need a healthy dose of truth speaking. I'm Dr. Sherry, and I'm grateful to be your Thriving Thoughts host, where we're shifting perspectives and speaking life to you so you can thrive. Be sure to tune in next week and share this episode with a friend. Until then, remember, overcome your little lies with big truths.